Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cat Knits podcast. I'm Catherine, or Cat, or Catherine, and this is my monthly knitting podcast. So this month I'm going to be talking about all the knitting I got up to and a few things that I actually purchased last month, which was the month of March. I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying these first few days of spring. The weather in Vancouver is really feeling like spring. There's the tulips and the daffodils are out. It's sunny. The air is crisp. It's kind of my favorite kind of weather. It's like maybe 16 degrees, 15, 13. So you can wear a sweater and flip-flops, which is, I love cold weather. I'm not a huge fan of when I have to actually put shorts on. So this is my favorite. Fall and spring are my favorite. But I've got the cutest little finished object to show you. Well, it's actually two finished objects, and that is Ellen's Coming Home set by PetiteKnit, and it's actually a three-piece pattern. So this is the pants and the sweater, and then the third piece is the bonnet that you can optionally knit. I am going to knit a little hat to go with this, but I found a pattern that I like better than the bonnet, which I'll show in a photo. It's got this cute little, like, I think you do like an I-cord at the top and then you tie it in a knot. I haven't actually checked if it's the right weight, but for this project I used this incredibly soft, drapey, silky yarn. It is a DK weight yarn that's 50% silk and then 50% fine merino. And it even describes the kind of silk. It's mulberry silk, and then it's extra fine merino and super fine merino. 30% extra fine, 20% super fine. I bought this on sale at my local yarn shop, which was Bad Anna's. It's called Vera, and it's by Gathering Yarns. It seems to be a pretty unpopular yarn on Ravelry. There was only, I think, 9 projects with this yarn. It is ridiculously soft. Like almost so soft that it's slippery, which is why it has this really beautiful drape to it. I also really like the color. It's this kind of lavendery color, and the silk gives the yarn sheen as well as, I think, quite a bit of strength. I didn't realize this though, but when you have a really drapey yarn, it's more likely to show any kind of issues with your tension or mistakes. So you can kind of see here, this is where I joined a new ball, and I've blocked this already, but there's no getting that out, which is fine. It's just something I didn't realize that wool kind of gives you, all wool, 100% wool, when it's bouncy, kind of gives you that affordability with making mistakes. So last time I showed these, I believe I had maybe one of the legs done on the pants, and then I knit the rest of this in March. But how you knit these is these are knit from the top down, and then you, after you knit for a little bit, then you do a row of purling. So you add in a garter stitch, which is where you fold over so that you have this beautiful double folded top part, waistband. And I'm actually planning to thread elastic through here. So I got a wonderful tip from my mother-in-law that you can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread elastic through, but I'm going to leave it open here. I don't know yet. I still have these strings because I'm not sure how much open I'm going to leave it. And then I'll be able to kind of pull the elastic if I want it to be kind of tighter around the belly of the baby, or kind of loosen it maybe as they get older, or maybe even just get rid of it at one point. Since this is such a soft yarn, I think the elastic is the best way to go. These buttons aren't real buttons either. They're just fake little buttons that are shown on, but so you do the folding of the elastic, and at the very end I just stitch down the top and the bottom using a piece of thread. I just chose a row in my knitting and then just made sure to, for every single stitch here, I did one stitch in the same row below, and that kind of created that very clean, easy edge. So it was actually pretty quick to do. I was surprised sewing it down, and not that painful. So you knit from the top down, and then you add a bunch of short rows for the diaper bum, and then you add some increases around the crotch to kind of give that space before you then put each, you split basically like you would for the sleeves and the body of a sweater, but you split for 2 of the legs, and then you knit and you do decreases, double decreases, very much like a sleeve, and then you end with the leg with some, well, like an inch of ribbing. And this is probably the only pair, well, I might do another pair of kids knitted pants, but I don't think I'm ever going to knit an adult pair of pants, so it was fun to get to try knitting pants for the first time. And when doing the bind off at the very end, I decided to do a bind off that a friend sent me rather than the traditional like knit one, pull it over, because I really want this to be able to grow, and you know, the baby will likely be moving, and I just would rather it just not be tight in any way, shape, or form. Also, I'm hoping I might be able to kind of like roll this up and then they can wear it for longer as well. Like if I roll it, I don't know, you know, they might be able to wear it, kind of maybe put it on earlier and then go from there. So for those of you that don't know, I'm actually currently just started my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So this is for our little baby girl, which is very exciting. This is the first item I have finished knitting for her, which I realized, so I just started knitting for her, well, basically kind of at the end of February, and I'm all excited now. But I've only got really 3 more months until she's born, which means I kind of have time for 3 more projects until she's born. And I've already bought yarn for 2 of those projects. So I kind of thought I was gonna have I was gonna do all this knitting, and I was gonna have all these little cute little outfits ready, but I think I will have probably like maybe 4 outfits ready for her, which is great. But I just, in my head, when I thought we were gonna have a baby, that the baby would be in hand knits all the time. Of course I can actually knit once she's born, but I'm just wondering how much time I'll have in those first few months. Probably not a lot at all to knit, but you never know. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. So these are the little pants. They are super duper soft. Oh, right, I was going to tell you about the bind off. So rather than doing knit one, pull one over, you bind off one by, you knit one, knit the next one, and then knit those 2 together. So now you've bound off one that way. Then you knit one, pull the knit 2 to stitch over like you would normally. And then for your next stitch, you'll then knit it and then knit the 2 on your right hand needle together. And then knit one and then pull that knit 2 together stitch over, and you kind of alternate between that, and it creates this much stretchier bind off. I'll include the Instagram video that my friend sent to me below so that you can watch it, and then rather than just trying to interpret exactly what I'm saying, I did that same kind of looser bind off on the sleeves as well, just because I thought it'd be nice to have these really stretchy. I went for the classic bind off on the bottom because it was just taking too long to do the other one, and I don't think the bottom of the sweater is as necessary to do. So for the little sweater, this is basically knit a raglan, knit back and forth. So you cast on the top, you do your little bits of ribbing, you do your raglan increases, and then you do buttons along the way. And then at the underarms, you of course put the stitches on rest, and you keep going. But it is knit back and forth. As you can see, there's buttons all the way down the side. So unfortunately you are purling, which isn't that much fun, but it wasn't too painful just because this is a DK weight yarn, so you don't have to do it too much. My only kind of gripes with the pattern is I don't think that this button band, so this is actually ribbing, like knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, like it's 5 stitches of ribbing, but it just doesn't quite look like ribbing. I think it would have been better if I had done like a garter stitch just on the way down, like kind of like pearl knits possibly, or maybe thought of a different way to kind of add some texture to the edging. The other thing that I changed, the kind of only modifications I made, I talked about how I did a different binding at the bottom, or a different cast off, sorry. The other alteration I made was where I put the buttons. So I believe she says to put them, I think it's like every 12 rows, and I decided to put them every 16 rows, which I think I was trying to decrease the number of buttons that I needed for the sweater. I don't think I did that really worked out that well. The sweater still has 7 buttons, which is, in my opinion, way too many buttons. What I am probably going to do though is leave these kind of 5 buttons always done up, and then I can just sneak this over her head and do up these last 3 buttons. I've seen, so PetiteKnit, she does have another set, which I think is like called the Sailor set, something like that. And that set only has 3 buttons at the top, and I believe it's almost like the identical pants. And for that set, I might recommend doing that set instead, so then you can actually knit in the round from here down, because I'm not sure it's necessary to have the buttons going. But the buttons going all the way down does look really cute. Like, I do think this looks like a very adorable little outfit. I love the fact that it's matching too. And it's this beautiful purple color, and I decided to go with buttons that were just like a shade darker. Originally, I was thinking of going for contrast buttons, like green or yellow, and so that they would really stand out, but I since decided that I wanted just very neutral, more kind of aesthetic. This is more of like an aesthetic baby. I'm planning on doing some very like loud baby stuff later, but for now I've just got this very cute outfit. And yeah, the yarn itself is super soft. As I mentioned, I did get it on sale, so there isn't any left at Bad Anna's in Vancouver, nor do I think they put their on sale yarn online. And I'd be curious. I should probably look into this brand to see why it's not as popular. Maybe it's more of a European brand, so it's just not as popular in Canada. But this took probably a few weeks worth of knitting to do the whole thing. I bet you it probably took about 4 weeks of knitting almost every night to get this little guy done. And I'm really happy with it. So if you're thinking about doing this pattern, it seems like it works really well. I just would be mindful of the buttons. Maybe even do your buttons even further apart. I don't know. I think for this, how drapey this yarn is, it was nice to have them maybe a little bit closer just to make sure that they're stuck. I mean, it doesn't even, to me, I was counting my rows using a stitch marker, but while looking at this, it looks like all the buttons are kind of a different distance apart. Maybe that's just me though. Like these two look way closer than these two and these two. So maybe maybe I forgot to move my stitch marker, but when I use my stitch markers to count, let me see if I can find a stitch marker. What I do is, on my needles, I'll put the stitch marker, I'll move the stitch marker. So basically every time I get to the beginning of it, I'll move it up one. So in this case, like I said, I wanted to do 16 rows between, which is like 8 there and backs. So I would have, when I started that first row, I would move the stitch marker at the first stitch, and then I'd go there, and then I'd go back. And then when I started the next row, I'd move it to the second stitch, and then I'd go there, and then I'd go back. And then the stitch marker marked how many rows I've done, so I always know if it's, at the third position, that means that I've done 6 rows. I just times it by 2. So in theory, all my everything should be equally spaced, but I don't think that is the case at all. Oh well. Also, I just wanted to mention for the underarms, I just love this technique that I learned from Susan Bryan, and that is where it basically gets rid of any holes for you. Before, I was finding I had to like use yarn to weave in my armpits, but now my armpits are already hole free. Basically what happens is, you have those stitches that you casted off when you split the sleeves. And then when you go to knit the sleeves, you typically like pick up stitches like here. This is knit down at this point, and you're going to start knitting the sleeve. So you'll pick up stitches that you had, cast off on the body. So you pick up, let's say, 2 stitches underneath the underarm. That's what the pattern calls for. But rather than just picking up 2 stitches on the actual row that you cast off on, you also pick up 1 stitch on either side in that section between your live stitches and your cast off edge. And by picking up that extra stitch kind of in that corner, you kind of really help close it, because naturally you have this gap that occurs as it's almost like the yarn naturally splits at those 2 stitches. And so when you do the pickup, you kind of always get this hole, even though you're just joining it as it should be. But if you get that stitch in there, it really just tightens it up beautifully and saves so much time, which is, for me, I love the knitting process. That's my favorite. It's anything to do with finishing that is a pain. And this is one of the reasons why I'm grateful for doing this monthly podcast, because it does force me to do the finishing. It forced me to like sew these buttons on and to weave in all the ends and to block the sweater, because I wanted to show it looking its best. Otherwise, I think it would have been months before I got around to sewing the buttons, even though it was so yeah, this is my first finished object for the baby. Although I guess I still need to get the elastic, but ignoring that, first finished object, which I am super duper excited about. The second thing was a bit of a yarn acquisition and that was my second project for the tiny tot hoops. And for that, I got this beautiful yarn by Sunday Fabrico. I'm just dropping things left, right, and center off camera. So let me just make sure your mic sometimes can get a little banged up. There we go. So I bought this gorgeous yarn by Sunday Fabrico, which is a local yarn company. She's based out of, I think it is maybe Maple Ridge in the lower mainland of Vancouver, Canada, which is where I'm from. It's hand dyed. This is actually her March colorway. So she did a couple colorways of the month. And it's this kind of creamy color with little kind of speckles of like purple and pink and blue. Just very, very subtle, which I don't know if you're actually going to be able to tell on camera. And this is in her organic, barefoot organic sock. And I spent so long debating if I should buy this yarn when I saw the March colorway come out. And then it turns out that the yarn store that I used to work at, Urban Yarns in Vancouver, they started carrying her yarns as like selling them in the store. And they actually had some of her March colorways. So I was so excited. So I ran over there and I picked up a skein because I figured it was fate at that point, but I decided to not order it. And then they got a email about the fact that yarn covers it, carries it. Also, I really wanted to check out her yarn in person because right now, Sunday Fabrico, she has a spring yarn collection out. It's called True Colors. I think there's like 8 very beautiful, vibrant tonal colorways, and she has it open until I believe it's Monday when it closes, the end of day Monday. And I wanted to order a bunch of yarn, but I just wanted to actually see the yarn and knit with it before I committed to doing that. So I ended up purchasing 3 full skeins, and then she has this 12 mini pack of all the rainbow colors. And with that 12 mini pack, I'm planning, I think it's the Anemone Sweater by Knitting for Olive, which has got all these cute flowers, so I can do all the flowers with the mini set. This is going to be my first mini set ever that I've purchased, but I was so thrilled with this yarn that I decided to go for it and buy that yarn from her spring collection. So if you're thinking about maybe purchasing some of her yarn. I'll make sure to link it below. But this color and the feel is great. So this is the organic barefoot sock. It is 80% merino and 20% recycled wool. It's eco superwash, so she's very, she believes in organic sheep that are muesling free and kind of the yarns that are as best as possible for the environment. So a lot of her yarns are non-superwash. The sock is superwash, but I believe it's eco superwash, which I think means they don't use chlorine or something like that. I don't quite know. But this yarn has been gorgeous. Not as soft as the, you know, superfine merino and silk, but very soft, great halo, good twist in the yarn itself, nice and fluffy. So this is actually a three ply fingering weight. It's 420 yards for 115 grams. So it is a bit of a thicker sock yarn, which I'm really enjoying. Like I said, I was quite happy with this, quite smitten. So that's why I ended up going for ordering some of her yarn during the spring collection. And what did I decide to cast on? Well, I wanted to make something cute that I could photograph the baby in during the first few months. I know that I probably won't be putting her in cute clothes for the first while, which is why I'm only going to make one thing that's the 0 to 3 month size. And this is what I landed on. It is the Knitting for Olive lace dress body, which is so cute and adorable. And we have a few weddings this summer, so I'm hopeful that she'll be able to wear it to at least one of them, maybe more than one of them. We'll see. It also depends on, I don't know if it's going to last or not. So this is my second Knitting for Olive pattern. And here you go. So it's knit from the bottom up. And look how pretty the yarn is here. You can probably actually see it much better now. But you can really see the kind of creaminess of it. And then you can probably see just the very faint play on color that's happening. It's almost like pastel-y. It's very, very April spring vibes. So it is a fingering weight yarn. So it's knit, I think it's on, 3mm needles. And you can see here I'm going to be knitting the onesie from the bottom up, and then I think you knit the lace skirt also from the bottom up, and then I believe you join and then kind of go from there. So the last Knitting for Olive pattern I did, I noticed that there was tons of ends to weave in. I think I did like the ruffle onesie, and if I'm not mistaken, there was like 16 ends to weave in. And unfortunately, I don't think this project is going to be any different because, as you can see, I already have 4 ends to weave in, and I know that I'm going to have 2 more just in this bottom portion of the onesie. So like I said, this is the 3-month-old size. So you can see how much tinier this is than the sweater that I just showed. So I think the fact that it's fingering weight will work well. And honestly, I've got these wonderful short needles. I got the shorty set, the Chiago shorties, and they make anything that's kind of a smaller circumference really feel like a dream. So to knit this, the reason why there is a bagillion ends is because you knit the front flap, and then you knit the back flap, and then you join the 2 flaps together, and then you go up from there. Also, I kind of wanted to show the difference here. You can see on this side, I did the finishing, mainly because I just wanted to see how it looks, and look at how much cuter it looks finished, versus this is the raw edge, if you will, where it's unfinished. And what I did for the finishing edge, or what's written in the pattern, and I think this finishing edge would be great for like summer tank tops or any kind of like short sleeve pattern. So I'm going to keep this in mind for that. But what you do is you pick up the stitches, then you do 1 thing of garter. So you pick up your knit stitches, then you knit on the wrong side to give you a garter. Then you do 2 rows of knitting in stockinette, so you knit the right side, purl the wrong side, and then you do a 3-stitch I-cord bind off. And that's what gives you this really cute detail, which is adorable. I do think there's a mistake in the pattern because the way it's written, you do have this little hole that happens only for the 3-month-old size. I'm going to, my Ravelry is in a state of never being updated. I need to get on that because I would like to kind of make a note for other knitters that I think what you should do is they have you do some rows with where you knit where you're not adding any new stitches for like the curve here for the 0 size, even though you probably don't need to do that. Instead, you should probably just join earlier and then start your knitting up from there so you don't have that hole. So I'm going to have to actually probably use a little bit of yarn to weave that hole in, and I'll have the same, maybe you can see it more obviously on this side, but you can see that there's like this natural hole that happens when you then pick up stitches along the edge and join the two sides together. It's also, this pattern also does have short rows for the diaper bum, which is awesome. So you probably can't see those really. For all my short rows, I use the German short row technique. I find you can't see the stitches. Like you can kind of tell ish where it is because you have that extra fabric, and they do have a little bit of like a textured bump to them. But I find you can't tell when looking at them from a distance. But yeah, how cute is this? I'm so excited about this. I've made decent progress. We'll see how long this takes to make. I always joke because I've made like lots of onesies for friends, babies, and family and friends, and you're always just amazed at how much knitting there is when you have a fingering weight yarn and you have to knit the whole body and maybe the sleeves. It almost turns into like I'm kind of curious, but I would imagine that this whole set, the top and the bottom, is probably going to take me as much time as this onesie. I am excited to try lace knitting though, because I haven't done lace knitting before, and my favorite time to try something new is always on a baby item, because then I can see how it tests my sanity when I only have to do a little bit of it, and whether or not I would really actually want to do something like that on like my scale, which is a lot bigger. But I can already tell looking at this, like you can see I'm gonna have to do the finishing around each armhole and the neck, which is, each of those is going to be another 2 ends to weave in. So I'm not sure if all knitting for olive patterns are less emphasis on seamless and more emphasis on just having ends everywhere. So far, I'll let you know after I do that anemone sweater if it is a theme. Well, that sweater's gonna have so many ends to weave in with all the different colors. Oh, that's so funny. So perhaps it is a theme. One thing I did change is all of the sizes have 4 buttons across the bottom, but I figured since this was the smallest size, I could probably get away with 3 buttons across the bottom. So I added the one, I just moved the button when you do the front piece to the center, and then I did the other, like you do the other 2 buttons in the finishing. So rather than having the 2 buttons kind of here, I just moved it so there's one in the center. And I'll probably do the finishing on this side and then weave in the ends, just because I kind of want to get some cute photos of this. One of my goals, which has kind of been a forever goal, is to actually have my Ravelry filled out and then do progress photos. So I was thinking, since this one I'm very excited and I think it's going to be very cute, hopefully I can actually do like a halfway progress photo, but no promises because I've promised this in the past and then I haven't delivered, which is not the best. So yeah, this is the next baby project on the needles, and possibly I might start working on multiple baby projects at once to increase the odds that I'll actually get something done. But yes, if you would like to, if you're thinking about ordering from her spring collection, I would probably do that sooner rather than later because, like I said, I think it's closing Monday, if I remember correctly. And then the last thing I worked on was a project for me. And I'll be honest, I did not make a lot of progress on this. I probably only worked on it like maybe 3 or 4 nights. And I kept making mistakes, so it went slower. I had to rip back. So then it just became a little more painful. And that is the Unst Sweater by Marie Wallin. This is the Fair Isle, all over Fair Isle sweater that I'm currently knitting. It's so funny going from, I kind of didn't realize how soft this yarn is until I switched from, like, I was knitting this one for a while and then I would switch to this one. This is a Shetland yarn. It's non-superwash. And Shetland yarn, not soft yarn, but it's not soft on purpose because I'm going to be steeking this sweater. So this is Marie Wallin. If you aren't familiar, she has all over colorwork, Fair Isle colorwork sweaters, and this is a cardigan and it is no different. It is going to be an explosion of color when I'm done. So this is just the beginnings of it, but it's all knit. So I have 12 of these, 12 colors, sorry. I have more than 12 balls though, which are going to make up the entire sweater. And this is the Shetland Spindrift. It's the Jamieson of Shetland brand. There's 2 from Shetland that basically have the same name. And they both do Shetland wool. Okay, yeah, it's just Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. So the yarn itself, since it's Shetland, I think it's like a sport weight yarn. I believe this is actually also knit on 3mm needles. Or no, these look a little bit thicker actually. 3.25. And then this is kind of considered a bit like a sport weight yarn. It's 100% Shetland, so it's super easy, super delicate. So I can just very gently pull and it'll break. And as you can see, Fair Isle is when you knit with 2 colors at once, and then you very frequently change which 2 colors you're working on. So each row will only have 2 colors in it, but then as you can see from all these ends, you'll very frequently change colors. This pattern is actually written to be knit back and forth, but I followed Mel Make Stuff, her recommendations. I'll include her YouTube video about how to turn this into a steeked cardigan instead. Because for those that have knit purled color work, especially Fair Isle, it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's actually a lot of work, in my opinion, not as much fun. I'm definitely a way faster knitter than I am purler, and I find when you're doing color work, it's nice to be able to see what the design is below, because then when you're reading the chart, you can just kind of look up. I like to kind of gauge where I am based on the rows below, which then I can kind of catch my mistakes a little bit easier. Although saying that, then took me forever to catch my mistakes when knitting this, so I did a lot of backwards knitting. But I did the corrugated ribbing back and forth, and then I joined in the round and I added in my steek stitches, which I think I did 7 steek stitches, which you can see here at the beginning. And this is where I join all my new balls so that I don't have to weave in any ends after this. And then you can see here, I'm knitting along. I ended up doing a gauge swatch for this because it's very important that this fits based on how much work it's going to be. Unfortunately, because I am now pregnant, I'm not going to be able to try it on to really see. I'm planning on probably doing a little bit more, like maybe doubling this, and then I'll lay it against some sweaters that I know fit well that I like, and then hopefully I won't have any problems with it. So here is the swatch. I believe I was a little bit tighter than what Marie Wallin suggested for gauge, which is why I went up 1 pattern size. Also, I just like looser garments. I like looser fitting clothing, so I think going up that extra size will kind of just be more something that I like to wear. We'll see how much progress I make on this. I would really like to get further. My goal is to really get further than the swatch so that I can start seeing kind of like how the pattern evolves. So right now I think I'm just basically here on this, that first yellow row. So I would like to make a lot more progress, but we'll see. I think I'm very excited about my baby knits at the moment. So this probably is not going to be as high on the priority list, but it is a lot of fun to knit. I'm now at the point where I don't really have to think. I just get to like follow the chart and knit, although saying that and then saying how I've made lots of mistakes, maybe I should start thinking a little more when knitting it. I don't know. Maybe it just took a while to get back in the groove. So this I worked on just a few nights, and I'll probably maybe continue to just kind of get a few nights in here and there. That was my gift to myself when I graduated back in September. So funny, when I bought it, I was like, oh, of course I'll just jump right in and I'll get it all done and it'll be great. So those are the 3 projects I did, and then I was just going to chat about some things I purchased. So there was the Fibres West Festival in Abbotsford, which is in the Lower Mainland, or no, sorry, in the Lower Mainland. So we spent a day, we went out there with all my knitting family and friends, which was fun. And we kind of looked at all the booths, and I just wanted to say, so I ended up bringing this bag. So this is actually a bag that my husband got me for holding my projects, and it's great because it actually stands up and stands open, but it has this way to roll it up and then cinch the top. So I think it'll be great for traveling. And also when we have the little one, not being able to, all my current yarn bags, they don't close. They don't really close, so it'll be nice to have this one. I can kind of close off all the needles and stuff. And it's made of this really beautiful, thick colors. And on the inside, it is just loads and loads of pockets. So I've just started kind of shoving stuff in pockets, but the whole thing is just lined. I don't know if you're able to see, actually. Maybe there. It's all just lined with pockets. Let me just see. It's hard. I film on an iPhone, so I actually can't see what you can see. But it's all lined with all different sizes of pockets, large pockets, small pockets, needle. You can directly put, like, I'm going to put my DPNs, my double pointed needles, directly in here. And then I've kind of got like all my tools tucked away in one of the bigger pockets. And right now I'm just using it to store everything in theory that I'll want to knit on every night of the week, which is like 5 projects, which not realistic that I'm actually going to knit 5 projects at once, but I love this bag. It is 100% organic cotton, and it's by Cottage Cloth. And then it's got this strap. So I had this empty at the festival, and I kind of had it over my shoulder, and then I was able to just walk around, and then in theory I could fill it up with yarn. Now I didn't do that in theory because I knew that I was going to buy a bunch of yarn from Sunday Fibre Co. So I was good, and I only bought these beautiful buttons, which they're called mud buttons because I think they're made out of, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name, clay, I believe. So they're kind of heavy, but they're all hand painted and they're gorgeous. So I'm very happy with these buttons that I got. And then I also got some more yarn, but this I got at my local yarn store because I'm going to be finishing the baby blanket that I started knitting a while back, but haven't made any progress on in a long time. And that is the 10-stitch blanket. So I'm knitting this in Norio Curion yarn, which is this 100% wool. It's a single ply, changing color yarn. And this 10-stitch blanket is very simple and easy and fun. And you basically just go around and around and around in a circle. It's an Aran weight wool, and these are size 9 needles. So you make good progress. This is has about 2.5 balls in it. So I currently have 6 balls for this, and I'm hoping it's going to be kind of the size of a receiving blanket, which I think is like 3x3 or like 4x4. I'm just going to see how far I get with the 6 balls, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'm going to be knitting almost all with different colors of balls. I'm going to have 2 overlap. I think I did buy, these 2 are two new ones, and then this is the one that I actually have in the center, which I was thinking of doing this one again after I finish the current one that I'm currently doing. But you basically just cast on 10 stitches, and then you knit garter stitch, and you do a column, and then you pick up stitches and you keep knitting, which is almost like what's going on here. So you kind of, every time you do 2 rows, you'll pick up another stitch from the edge, and then you do short row corners, and then you just keep going and going and going. So I'm definitely going to try to make good progress on this, because this I would like to have done before the baby's born. This is going to kind of be like more of a rustic blanket that I think we can kind of like throw down when we're outside, not have to really worry about what we're putting it down on, because it's so multicolored. I don't think it's really going to show dirt or anything like that too badly. And then we can just kind of put her down on it. At least that's the idea. We'll see how we actually use it when we get it. But I got these 3 balls to kind of finish this off. So this is very high on the radar for April, because I would like to make a little progress on that. So yeah, this was the other kind of acquisition I made this month, which really, I think this has been a big month for acquisitions. Normally I try not to have too much fun purchasing yarn in one month, but I seem to have broken that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, which I think this is the last thing, is, so my husband came up with this great idea. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but every year I get the Long Way Homestead calendar, and she uses the proceeds to feed her sheep. She does a lot of advocacy for Canadian wool, both like sheep farming, milling, and spinning, and all of that amazing stuff. So she has this calendar that she creates every year, and the top half are photos of sheep from her farm. So this is Long Way Homestead. It's based out of Manitoba in Canada. And what my husband realized is they're kind of these cardstocks, and they have the different little facts at the bottom. And I think, did I move that? Oh, I haven't moved that over to April yet. So that's March's photo. So I gotta do that because it's like April 5th now. But we ended up cutting off the bottom, and now we're going to use them as cards. So I've already used a couple of them, so you can write on the back, and then you can kind of, because they've already naturally got the hole in them, I've just found I can just tie them to gifts. So that was kind of a fun, another use for all these cute sheepy photos. So I didn't know if anyone else has that calendar or is thinking about getting that calendar. I think it's probably you can no longer get it this year, but if you have it already, then here is another use for the cards, and I'll definitely mention this. I'll most definitely probably be getting it again the following year, just because I like supporting her, and then it's fun to have sheep in the house because, you know, as a knitter, I'm just obsessed with all things wool and sheep. Okay, I think that covered everything from the past month, so I hope everyone is doing good. I hope everyone's enjoying the first few days of spring. I hope the weather is good where you are. I know, like Vancouver, this is definitely a false spring. We will get rain again. May is notoriously nice. June is notoriously awful. And April is normally pretty awful too, in terms of just rain and muck. So I hope everyone is doing well. Happy belated Easter. I know that was a while ago. And all the best, and see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Bye.